All right, Gearheads, welcome to the show. We just watched the Formula One British Grand Prix, and it did not disappoint. It was a fantastic race. This is John Massengale. I'm joined by Bob Varsha and Dave O'Neill. Mr. Varsha, what'd you think of that race? I thought it was fantastic.
Oh, I did too, John. Spectacular stuff. I was just looking down the results. Um, there was so much going on, and we have the top five cars were on all three of the available Pirelli tires at the end of that race. We heard Lando Norris say, "I don't know why they put me on the hard at the end." And frankly, I was thinking the same thing. I don't know why Ferrari put Carlos Sainz on the hard at the end because they were long to warm up, and you couldn't fight the guys who were on the mediums and the softs. Having said that, wow, what a job George Russell did. He went 28 laps on a set of used softs at the start of that lap. That's, 10 laps beyond what Pirelli said they ought to be able to do. So, just spectacular stuff. Odd strategies. We kept thinking rain was coming. It never really did in any volume. And at the end, great battles. Lewis versus Lando, two Brits on the podium. Verstappen wins again, but this is historic because it's the 11th straight for Red Bull, matching what McLaren did with Prost and Senna back in 1988. Just an amazing day all around. Huge crowds, great stuff.
You're absolutely right. I think it was a showcase for Formula One today. There was so much going on. Dave O'Neill, what do you think of the race? And put your team manager hat on and tell me what you thought of the McLaren hard tire choice.
Well, yeah, fantastic race. Safety car or virtual safety car helped a little bit to bring it back at the end, which was good. But I think the start of the race was, key with the McLarens. They seemed to get that right. If you looked at Lando, he kind of parked his car at a spurious angle to try and get tucked into Max as soon as he could, which he did. And he did what he could for the handful of laps that he led the race. So he finished on the podium. The car didn't go away as I thought it may do on the tyres. And also Piastri did a great job as well, fighting with all the experience up the front. Mercedes, Lewis did a great job as well. He managed to bring it back. He overcooked his tyres towards the end when the safety car came in. But all in all, finishing on the podium, great result for Mercedes after their struggle in the beginning of the week. Ferrari, big struggle there.
Oh boy,
yeah,
not fantastic at all. But yeah, I can imagine the pit wall at McLaren deciding which tyre to go on. That must have been, roll the dice, and like Lando said in the interviews at the end, I think that must have been Zach's call. So yeah, pretty interesting, really.
Yeah, I did hear that, and I was smiling when he said that. It's like he's got to blame that on the boss. But you know what? It made for some great racing there with Lewis Hamilton because he had Lando on the hards and Hamilton on the softs. It was fantastic. And you heard Lewis Hamilton in the interviews there saying that the McLaren was just so fast in those high speed corners it couldn't catch him. But man, what a fantastic race! I'm so excited. There's so much to talk about. You mentioned Ferrari. At one point, Carlos Sainz, he lost 3 positions in one lap, and he was on the point.
oh,
It would have been a disaster had they finished out of the points.
yeah, it was so bad. The hard tire on the Ferrari. Yeah, it almost makes you wonder if they put Carlos on that tire just to avoid any contretemps. Should that's me trying to match Dave's spurious word right out of Lewis Carroll. I wonder if they put Sainz on that tire just so he wouldn't get close to Leclerc and we wouldn't have one of those "let me by, no, you can't go by, why aren't you letting me by," yeah, that kind of thing. I mean, that's the cynic in me, but I mean, it was so clear that that was not the right tire for Carlos. But then again, it was Ferrari, and a lot of what they do kind of makes you scratch your head. I was just watching the crowd on the TV pictures running down to the podium. It looked like the start of the New York City Marathon. It was just wall-to-wall people bobbing up and down as they ran down the strip.
And
Cool.
what about Piastri holding off George Russell on those tires? We got to give him, some credit too for both those
Oh, yeah.
McLarens on those hard tires.
Yeah, I mean, he did a great job. He's got the car there. We still don't know whether he has the same front wing as Norris, but he played with the big boys today. You have to shout out to Albon though. He did a fantastic job in that Williams.
Yeah.
He was racing the Ferrari at the end. Like Crofty said, the last time that happened was a few years ago.
Yeah. And Logan Sargeant. I mean, what he finished 11th or something? Where was he?
Just out of the points. Yeah, he did a great job.
Yeah, he finished 11th. That's his highest finished ever.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure.
Round of applause for that, I'd say. British Grand Prix, and there was only, 2 non-finishers?
Yeah, three,
actually,
I think.
3 now.
3, was it?
Yeah, Gasly, Ocon, and Magnussen with the fire. And really, that's when the fun kicked back into high gear, was when Magnussen, his car went up in smoke, which is horrible for the Haas team. But that's when everything got good. And by the way, because of that, and because of Albon finishing up in 8th with 4 points, Williams is now, they show to be ahead of Haas, even though they're both tied with 11 points at Constructors' Championship, moving Haas down to 8th and Williams up to 7th. Wow, that's a big accomplishment for Williams, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And poor Magnussen, 2 engine failures on the weekend for K-Mag?
Yeah, I think they had a union came loose yesterday, which was why he pulled over. They lost oil pressure, so he had to pull over. And I believe, I'm not sure, Bob, you'll probably be able to correct me, I think they had the same engine in for the race. So obviously oil pressure yesterday possibly damaged or did some damage or seized a bearing or something for the race, and it came today.
Yeah, I'm just looking at some of the positions. Perez, I was a little worried if he didn't. I think they targeted P6 at the beginning of the race, which is where he finished. And at one point, it was under 10 laps to go, and he was still in P8. I thought that would have been a disaster. There is that Daniel Ricciardo that we didn't really think was going to be a factor of potentially replacing him. But if he continues to have such a disastrous, ever since that lap 1 of Monaco, when he dove in and made that mistake, it's his whole season. I mean, last week was a bit of last race, bit of recovery, but still, I'm just worried about him. But Hamilton up 4 positions, Perez up 9 positions. That's big. The other big movers were Logan Sargeant up 3, Bottas up 8 positions, up to 12th. And but what do you guys think? You think I'm crazy talking about Ricardo replacing Checo?
No, not at all. Not at all. That keeps the pot boiling, keeps Formula One front and center in front of fans. You never know what's going to happen, other than Verstappen winning, of course. But no, this was a real scramble, and that's what you get. We talk about it all the time. When you got to have a performance advantage to get a lot of critical overtaking. And this time around, with cars maybe a little out of position in qualifying, and everybody on different kind of tires at different times of the race, you're going to get those kind of performance gaps that produce good battles.
Yeah, no doubt. And Dave O'Neill, we touched on it, but I just want to get your take. Would you have done that for McLaren? And why do you think they did that? I mean, looking at it, I just don't understand the decision. I don't think it was a horrible mistake, but it seemed like a gamble.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why they did it. They've got all the data and the clever people behind the scenes making that decision.
Yeah.
But I guess they had to maybe do something different than Max did to see if anything happened. But of course, I think there was 8 laps left before the end of the race, and by all accounts, the hard tire takes a couple of laps to warm up or get to its operating temperature, which was another negative to fit in the hard tire. Maybe they were trying to defend second place with Lewis on the softs, and they knew that they had no chance of winning unless they did overtake at the start of the safety car, which is highly unlikely. There's not many instances that happen. So maybe it was a defensive move for the Mercedes behind them.
And I think I always like it when I see teams doing something that it's like, okay, let's don't just be paralyzed and stick where we're at and just do the obvious. I like it when they're thinking and try something, and I'm glad it turned out. Honestly, I am. But I want to go back. Yeah, go ahead.
I think the other thing was, I think I'm right in saying, is that the hards were the only new set of tyres they had left. So if they were to fit the softs or the mediums, they were used, so they wouldn't have had the peak of the tyre.
Yeah, good point.
That could have been a factor they were thinking about.
Yeah, good point. Good point. So what about what happened to Max Verstappen? Did you hear what he said? He said, we'll have to take a look into this, what happened when he had a bad start, because you saw the reaction times. I don't know if you guys saw it, but they were almost the same between he and Lando, but clearly something, he had either a wheel spin or an engine bog or something, but he was clearly slower. In fact, Piastri almost caught him. But what do y'all think happened there? Any ideas?
Well, I think he just mistimed it. It was only a 0.3 of a second difference, but I think if Verstappen's start looked worse than it really was because Norris's start next to him was so good. I mean, Norris got away 2.3 seconds or something.
Yeah, 0.23 to 0.25. Yeah,
2.25. Yeah, so that's Verstappen kind of failed by comparison. It wasn't that bad a start, but this is what happens. And I blew my prediction to start when I said Piastri ought to follow Verstappen through the first corner. He needed to be behind his teammate, who was launched like a cannon shot. I was just looking down our friend Sean Kelly's stats. One that really caught my eye was, two of them actually. One, McLaren as a team had not run a single lap this season through 9 races in the top 5. And here they put both cars in the top 4, and they were there for most of the race. And the other fact is that 2 British drivers finish on the podium of a British Grand Prix for the first time since 1999, David Coulthard and Eddie Irvine. There's a blast from the past.
Yeah, all those stats about this, it's so surprising with the dominance of Lewis Hamilton and Mercedes all those years that there weren't more stats like I know that 2 Brits on the podium that's not what I'm talking about. Just in general, though, it seems like I was surprised at some of that.
Yeah, well, that's the nature of Formula One. Guys being in the right cars at the right time. And, in a race like this, which is a complete jump ball, and some teams brought some very effective updates. And of course, we're looking at Williams and McLaren there. This sort of thing is going to happen. And I hope it continues through the rest of the year because it's really exciting to watch.
All right, let's get into a word from our sponsor real quick. CrowdStrike presents Driven in 60 as the official cybersecurity partner of the Mercedes-AMG Petronas Formula One team. CrowdStrike protects against cyber threats so the team can focus on what matters, their next win. The revolutionary cloud-native unified CrowdStrike Falcon platform harnesses the speed and power of the cloud to protect and defend organizations of all sizes against increasingly complex threats, stopping breaches before they happen. Because on and off the track, the stakes couldn't be higher. A split second can make the difference between victory and defeat. When every second counts, protection shouldn't slow you down. It should fuel your momentum. CrowdStrike, protection at every turn. To learn more and to try a CrowdStrike Falcon free today, visit crowdstrike.com/XM. And we at Speed City are proud users of the CrowdStrike Falcon platform ourselves. When I plug in my iPhone to my computer, it says, you can't connect to that. You are stopped by the Falcon platform. But Dave O'Neill, what else down this grid that caught your eye today? I mean, we talked about several good and bad things. Logan Sargeant having a good day, Ferrari having a bad day. But what about your old teammates? Just a disastrous day for Haas. I mean, honestly, they lost a position in the constructor standings. Car caught fire. Just a horrible finish.
Yeah, agreed. I don't think they've got on top of the race pace at all. They're definitely struggling there. And again, qualifying wasn't anything to shout about. Yeah, I'd say they want to wipe this one from the slate for sure. But yeah, in the pits, there wasn't anything sort of disastrous in the pits from any of the teams. I think there was the worst that we saw there was a 3.4 from one of the teams.
Mm-hmm.
Can't remember, but
I
the
saw
rest
Russell had a 3.9.
He did, yeah, 3.9. The rest of them were pretty good. There's a lot of 2.4s, 2.5s, which is pretty impressive.
A couple of sketchy pit releases. I'm trying to think. One of the Ferraris and the Williams got very close to each other on a pit release.
Yeah.
It's up.
Yeah.
The other thing.
Sorry,
go ahead, Dave.
No, go
on. I noticed here among the stats, McLaren, of course, gets their first podium of the year. They are the 6th different team to get on the podium. So with all this talk about, Verstappen and Red Bull winning all the races, it's not competitive. More than half the field has had a driver on the podium this year, 6 teams out of 10. So
that's a brilliant stat
to an uncompetitive series. Yeah.
Yeah. Tell Sean Kelly, thank you for that one, because that makes the point that we've been making is that, yes, Max Verstappen is running away with the championship, but there's so much good racing after that. All right, guys, let's get a quick break in. And when we come back, we'll continue to break down the Formula 1 British Grand Prix after this. All right, we're still live on YouTube and Facebook, and I am searching up for Andy P., America's biggest McLaren fan. He is, I think he's having a hard time to go off the ceiling. What does he say? He starts off, he says, "My neighbors know I'm awake now." P2, baby. That's great. That's great. He said the hard tire decision was very marginal for sure, but they worried about tire deg, and by the time they had the real discussion, Lando was just about at the pit lane. So yeah, had they changed their minds, it might have been a chaotic stop, and they did not want that. So,
have we given out the phone number?
I haven't, not since we started the show. Let's do that. Let's get some calls in. You're right. I said I was going to give away some tickets.
Ooh.
Let's see what else. Mike Bowles, he's on the regular. He says, granted, everyone can't make the podium or score points, but I believe most felt good about after this race. It was the best feel-good morale as a whole in quite a while. Yeah, that's a good point. 2 Brits on the podium, and McLaren with a giant recovery from the beginning of the season. What else? Kevin Kelly says, and of course, Max gets the fastest lap. TW's got an interesting point here. Lewis got lucky with the yellow. McLaren was second fastest, should have had P2, P3. That's racing, though, for sure. Yeah, I was a little worried there. I was worried about McLaren, what that pit stop was what was gonna happen to them, but I'm glad it turned out good. Here we go.
Hi guys, this is Pierre Gasly and you're listening to Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
All right, gearheads, welcome to Speed City. We watched Max Verstappen win another race, 11th in a row for McLaren, for Red Bull, tying the all-time McLaren record of 11 wins in a row here at the British Grand Prix. Of course, Lando Norris finished P2 and Hamilton P3 with 2 Brits on the podium at home. That's a feel-good story for you. This is John Massengale, and I am joined by Bob Varsha and Dave O'Neill. And guys, that's like we're saying, it's just such a feel good story. This whole race, uh, showing what Formula One can do. Yes, Max Verstappen's dominant, but Bob, we got to say it was just a fantastic race, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when you think of where we were at the beginning of the season, you had McLaren's battling with Mercedes, you had Ferraris battling with Williams. I mean, who'd have thunk it? Here we are, 10 races into the season, not even at halfway yet. And we've seen so much change, so many teams improving. Now, having said that, Silverstone, and maybe Dave will back me up on this, Silverstone's kind of an anomaly out there in the same way that Monaco is. Our next 4 races are at Hungary, twisty, Belgium, wide open but narrow, the Netherlands, tight and twisty, and then of course Monza, which is a complete jump ball again. So I think we're going to see more of this kind of competition and surprising battles, at least for the next 4 or 5 races.
Yeah, agreed. There's 4, like you say, 4 different races, 4 different specs of car you've got to bring to each of those races. So there's a lot of planning to be done. Also with, at the stage of the power units that the teams get, they also place the power units for the right circuit. So you want something real fresh for a circuit like Monza, where it's power dominated. And then obviously a strong engine for somewhere like Spa. But there's, like Bob says, the next 4 are interesting. But also the other thing is we could probably maybe even start talking about when's Max going to be champion. He's 99 points ahead currently.
I was going to say, in about 10 minutes.
Sorry, Bob?
In about 10 minutes, Max is going to be champion.
312 left on the board out of the 12 races left. And I think, Checo could probably check out pretty soon, I think.
Dave, I would build a spreadsheet for that, but I think it would be a waste of time to try to figure out how soon that's going to happen. I think there's the inevitable is going to happen. But hey, during the pre-race show,
now we're going to be, it's going to be.
I was just gonna say, I gave out the phone number and we got a caller on the line, so let's bring him on. We got one of our regulars. We got Corvette Mike, who hauls Corvettes for a living. Hey, Mike, how's it going, buddy? What'd you think of the British Grand Prix?
I enjoyed it as much as any so far this season. Thank you guys for presenting it.
Oh, you are welcome. I agree with that as much as any this season. I agree. There's been some good racing, but that was fun.
It seemed to me that it was just the perfect Brit day, and I loved seeing McLaren do their thing, and even Lewis back on the podium. So it was, again, it was just a really feel-good time for me. I truly enjoyed this race. Everyone seemed to be smiling and happy. I was even, down the line with no points and no scoring and no podiums, but I think everyone had a great time.
I like the way you put that. It was the perfect Brit day because we talked about the weather. We got a spritz or 2 of rain, and ended up with 2 Brits on the podium. Lots of good battling. It was great, Mike.
Flattery will get you nowhere.
But I mean, you actually saw Max get out and smile and pat people on the back. I mean, come on.
Well, it's pretty easy to do when you're 100 points ahead, but I'll still give it to him.
Yeah, be champion in 10 minutes, Mr. Varsha says. Yeah, he's got it sacked, so there you go. But I hope flattery will get me somewhere. I've returned 4 tickets for the coda that I couldn't make.
You have, Mike. You have earned your rights, and I'm going to put a pair of tickets to the Formula One United States Grand Prix here in Austin under your name, Mr. Corvette Mikes.
You are the man. You are the station. You are Speed City, the fastest hour in radio. Love you guys.
Well,
the only thing I miss here is to hear Mr. Green and his input on a Brit win.
I know it. We were going to pre-record something.
Oh, no! Oh, there you go. That's right. Somewhere, Jonathan Green is dying inside right now because he couldn't get on.
Well, that's why I made sure Dave O'Neill could join us, because I said we got to have some Brits. And, of course, Chris Medland will be joining us here shortly. He texted me. He said He's going to be joining us in just a few minutes from Silverstone. But hey, Corvette Mike, before we let you go, tell us where you are. Are you driving with Corvettes on the trailer today?
No, I'm actually empty going back tomorrow. I'm down in Nashville, but I'd like to say two quick things. I heard a couple of sound bites from Mr. Varsha during the Indy race at New York, Watkins Glen, and read a couple of articles of Mr. Chris Medland, which, what y'all say his real last name was this week?
Wetland.
And I think if he would update his little small bio and throw Speed City in there.
Hey, we'll tell him you said that. We'll try to convince him to do that.
Thanks, you guys, again. I love the show.
All right, thanks, Mike. We'll talk to you soon. Hey, you know
Drive
what?
safe.
You know what? That reminds me of something. You know, the beef that we get here on social media here at COTA when we do big American things, you know, Michael Buffer and just play it all up big. Well, you know, why not stop giving us a hard time about that? Let's have every race be what they are. And the British Grand Prix was, like Mike said, it was very British. And let's let the American race be very American. Let's let each culture and each country have their own. What do you guys think? What do you think, Dave?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You know, I mean, the show that the COTA puts on is fantastic. It's pure, you know, pure American. No other way for it. I don't think that you should even try. And again, you know, same with the British Grand Prix. It's a load of noise when someone goes to overtake or overtakes, and that's what we want. So yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, Bob, what do you think? You know, what are your favorites of the cultures? You know, the Japanese do it's so different from everybody else. Everybody does their own.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely right. So we have mariachi bands and dancers at Mexico. We have gosh, what do we have in somewhere in the Middle East? I can't remember exactly where. We had a musical group in you know, in local costume and all that sort of thing. I mean, it's a hands across the sea cultural moment before the start of the race. Yeah, I mean, that's been under my saddle since people bitched and moaned about the way they handled Miami and the driver introductions. I mean, come on, that was very American. Now, you know, you can come up with some odd ones. I have nothing against LeBron James, but why he was waving the French flag to start the centenary edition of the 24 Hours of Le Mans, I will never know. But, you know, it is what it is. That's the choice they made. I think we can do a very American show, not only at COTA, but after that, Las Vegas. Think of the possibilities for Las Vegas. What's Wayne Newton doing on that night of the Las Vegas Grand Prix, or some kind of a magic act, you know, have all the drivers pop out of a smoking box, or, you know, have fun with it. I mean, that's the whole point of this exercise. It's fun.
Yeah, let's do it up American. And speaking of Americans, Chris Medland is running around with his microphone, and he's grabbed American Logan Sargeant.
Logan, you said yesterday that you're going to try and fight your way forward and get close to the points. That's exactly what you did. So let's focus on the fact you fought forward. I mean, how enjoyable was that race and the pace you showed?
I mean, it was difficult out there, that's for sure, but no, it was enjoyable. I feel like we had a great car today. You know, the balance was pretty much exactly where I would have wanted it. A bit of a hiccup on the first lap, losing a couple positions. Need to clean that up for sure. And the safety car coming out one lap after I pit was tough to see. But no, all in all, great race. I was able to climb my way back through, and we had really good pace. So last 2 weeks have been a step in the right direction, and we need to keep that up.
Yeah, if the safety car timing had been better for you, I guess if you hadn't come in until the safety car came out, were points on the cards, or do you think you're still up in about the same spot?
No, I think absolutely. I think, you know, we would have gained a lot of time in the pits and put us in a much better position to attack Carlos, who was struggling a bit on those primes. So, yeah, I think it could have cost us a point today.
But how does it feel to finish 11th? Because it is your best result, and as you say, lots of positives to take. Are you looking at it and being like, oh, World Championship points right there, or are you just taking the fact that you showed this progress?
No, not at all. I think it's positive just to see the progress. It's positive to see that we're fighting and getting closer and closer to the points, and that's all I can ask for at the moment. the team's doing a great job. Alex is showing that the car's capable of scoring points, and there's still work to be done. Saturdays still need to be improved, and that's what my focus is on, just improving as a driver, and I know the points will naturally come.
And how much of that improvement has come from being at tracks that you know well, having a run now, because obviously Canada was a new one for you as well, so being here in Europe and having circuits that you've been successful on?
Yeah, I think coming back to Europe, getting the update on the car was a positive. It just naturally brought pace, but at the same time I'm driving better, so everything's come together. There's still work to be done. This weekend I'm still missing some time in quali runs, and it's not a lot, but it's there, and I'll dig into it more after this round to see what I can do better in Budapest. It's going to be a tough round there. It's a tough track, but yeah, it's another track that I know. It's another track that I normally perform well at. So all of it.
Yeah, well driven today.
Thank you.
It's just so fantastic to have an American on the grid and one that's starting to do better. I'm ecstatic about this. What do you think, Bob?
Oh, I am too. The other day, Fred Vasseur, team principal at Ferrari, was quoted in the media as saying, "We don't need another American team in Formula One. We have one in Haas. What we need are more American drivers," which I think ignores the fact that one of the things Michael Andretti said was a primary plank in his Formula One platform is to have American drivers. So, there's an easy solution to what Fred Vasseur apparently sees as a problem or a way to improve Formula One. So let's make it happen. I mean, this is a whole different area after today's race that both Fred Vasseur and Toto Wolff have come out publicly, again, re-emphasizing the fact that they don't want to see an 11th team. But gosh, I have to say, I don't know how many tracks they're worried about not having enough room for another team. You get a place like the Hungaroring where parking is at a premium and so on. So, you eliminate one support race and you have presto, more paddock space. I just don't get this. Toto Wolff even said there's too much traffic on the racetrack. Look at Austria. Come on.
Yeah,
that's a stretch. Having another team out there, particularly an effective team. I know Chris Medland doesn't agree with me. I still think they were a little concerned that the Andretti operation has come in and be competitive, and that makes life more difficult for everybody up and down the pit lane. But it's a good kind of problem to have.
Well, I think that competitive is the right word for the Andretti team, and if they get this shot, I have dealt on a business level with the Andretti family, and they are on it. So, and we've all seen their competitiveness on the track. Let me give out the phone number, 512-643-LIVE, 512-643-5483. Give us a call and give us your opinion. And we got Bryn holding. And Bryn, if you can hold through the break, we'll come to you after the break. You're listening to Speed City, back after these messages. All right, we are still live on the YouTubes and the Facebooks. Let's see who's out there chatting us up. Let's see. Joe of Oyster Bay with the hot take. Is Stroll trying too hard to please his dad, or is that just him? Ooh. Yeah, Stroll. Oh boy, who did he push off?
I think what we've been seeing from Lance Stroll goes back last year.
Goes back what?
To last year, when we saw Stroll make some pretty sketchy moves. I don't think he's doing them by way of attack. I think he's just not using his mirrors. He doesn't know who's around him. That's sort of, situational awareness that a driver has to have, given that the mirrors in Formula One are only partially effective anyway. I think Lance just gets a little unfocused.
Yeah, when he took
going wheel to wheel with people.
When he went off track and took Gasly out with the puncture, that was hey, Dave O'Neill, you're the former team manager. What do you think about Stroll?
Well, it's just not quick enough. I think
There you go.
you got Alonso there, keeping him real there. He all right, let's make a few excuses. His wrists are probably hurting him still a little bit. He just doesn't. You have to be on it and want it 110% to be there. And I just don't think he has he has his moments. But again, to be a great racing driver, you have to have, every time you get in your car has to be a great moment to string them all together. But yeah, talking about track limits, which he got away with, didn't he? He went over and past Gasly, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I think
Here we go.
Gasly was break the track rod.
Here we go, Dave.
Like right rear track rod.
Hello, I'm Jenny Gow from BBC F1. You are listening to Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
The Speed City F1 post-race show on SiriusXM is brought to you by CrowdStrike. Stop today's most sophisticated cyber attacks at the office, the racetrack, and everywhere in between. Learn more at crowdstrike.com/XM. All right, we went to break. I said we have a caller on the line, and we do. We have Bryn, who is in Iowa. Hey, Bryn, how are you, buddy?
Hey, good afternoon, gentlemen. I'm good, thanks. How are you all?
We are good. I am loving that accent. Where are you? You said you're calling from Iowa, but you're obviously from across the pond?
Yeah, from Wales.
Nice. Well, what'd you think of the British Grand Prix today?
It was really exciting. Happy there was two Brits on the podium. Obviously, I'm a Lewis fan, so I wish it had been Lewis was second, but I'm happy for Norris. But I think McLaren got it right because I know he had to work hard to fight Lewis off when on the softs, on the hards, but Lewis's tyres went off after a while. So I think the hard was a good choice for McLaren because had Lewis passed Lando, I think Lando could have had him back towards the end of the race. So, I think McLaren would have got it wrong had he lost the place, but he didn't lose it, so they did not get it wrong. So, that was my opinion.
Well, go ahead, Bob.
Well, that tire, I agree, definitely worked well on the McLaren, and Norris was just fighting like he may never have previously in his career. I mean, you can tell how much he wanted it. And the fact that Lewis complimented him afterwards on the courteous driving, despite the heat of the competition, probably says a lot. Compare that with the problems that Carlos Sainz and the Ferrari had on that hard tire. It's all about the combination of car and tire. What worked for McLaren didn't work for Ferrari. I guess it's always been that way.
Well, hey, Brent, thank you for calling in, and we're going to put your name in the hat for some tickets because we're going to give away a few more tickets as the season progresses. But thanks for calling in, buddy. We appreciate it. And we're going to move on to see. We got another caller. We've got Billy, and he's in Kansas City. Hey, Billy. How's it going?
Going well, gentlemen. I agree 100% with the idea that each track, each place brings its own culture, its own beautiful, individual round, as it were, to the whole championship. And each one is great. There's a racing culture in Japan that goes back into the 60s. There's racing culture in Brazil. That's what makes it all great. If it was all the same and whitewashed, we wouldn't love it as much. And I absolutely agree with Bryn. I think McLaren was looking behind and not necessarily ahead, as no one should, because Max is going to win. He's going to win. And when they put Lando on, I think they said, all we got to do is be ahead of Lewis for a couple laps when he's on these softs, and that will go off, and then we'll be ahead of him good and clear. And it was, if you saw, I'm sure the telemetry was first sector. Lando had Lewis every single lap on that restart. In the first sector, Lando was quicker. And that was with the DRS at the beginning of that sector. And then Lewis was getting, he was within 4/10, but then it was 7/10, and then it was 8/10. And then once he was out of DRS, it was over. It was smart. It was great strategy. Perfect race by McLaren.
I love it. Billy, you sound very knowledgeable. And how long have you been listening or watching Formula One? I mean, are you a longtime fan?
Yes, longtime fan. I'd say 2007. I'm in my mid 30s, so 2007, 2006. I'm a Lewis fan, so right around that time. But I love it. I just love good racing, and yeah, it's fun. It's I think the British Grand Prix is a great track to show. It's a power track, so it was fun to see Williams, like you guys say. It was nice to see McLaren and Williams up fighting and looking good and looking slippery, looking fast. That was fun.
Yeah.
So more on it. I'm excited to see the Hungarian Grand Prix. I will say, a little shout out. There is a really cool bar here in Kansas City, a brewery that shows F1 live every single race.
Love that. What's the name of it? Shout it out. I love it.
It's called Pass Light Brewery. They're in Shawnee, Kansas. They will show. We watch it, whether it's the Australian Grand Prix at 12:30. They show it live.
That's awesome. Well, and what do you think about? Last question for you. What do you think about all these new Drive to Survive fans? They're all coming around now. Now they know what you've been talking about all these years, right?
Well, it's exciting. I want them to stay, and I will say, just because Max and it's how it's always been. Whether it was Michael, whether it was Senna, I mean that's just and it's physics. It is when it happens, when you're the first one to get the new era right, you're always going to be quicker to every single upgrade, and everyone has to catch you. And especially and I love Lewis, especially if you're a car that is tricked into sticking with a bad idea from a Brazilian Grand Prix result. But there are battles up and down the grid, and it's all about what can Alpine, can they looked really good, but now they've got a double DNF and they've lost ground and McLaren look really good. That's just, I will say, just because the win, look, Max is a great driver. Adrian Newey is a great engineer. Red Bull is a great car. They have it right now. But when they started, they didn't. If you go back and look, when they started, when Red Bull came in and they bought, was it Jaguar? They didn't look like this. Their cars were DNFing. They had engine issues. They had reliability issues. They were upstarts. So, this is the culmination of a long time, I
love your passion, Billy.
Road.
You're absolutely right. I can hear the passion in your voice. I love it. And you're absolutely right. You're spot on. This sport is about physics, technology, engineering, and they got it right. It's their turn. We let them have that and enjoy it while they have it. But Billy, hey, we're going to throw you in the hat and your hat in the ring too, Billy. We'll take your number down and stuff. And thank you for calling in. We really appreciate it and appreciate your insights. Good stuff.
Cheers, boys. Thank you.
Good stuff, man. He had it spot on, nail on the head on multiple topics, didn't he, Bob?
Yeah, and he has that broad perspective of history that really colors your feeling about Formula One. And we hear all the time from fans, oh, one series is better than another, yada yada yada. Formula One is unique, and it's great to hear a fan who understands and embraces that uniqueness, all the design and construction of your own car, all the varied backgrounds of the drivers, the rivalries, the grudge matches, the successes and failures. Yeah, it'd be a sophisticated, educated fan, and he's obviously one.
All right. Well, we got Chris Medland out at Silverstone, and he is jumping around grabbing some interviews, and he just caught up with James Vowles from the team principal at Williams after a good finish by both the drivers.
Oh, of course, but I don't have a camera, James, you see, sadly.
But I do.
Oh, here we go. Oh, we're being Netflix. That's what's going on. James, What a result. I mean, and what a performance. That's the other thing. I mean, the car looked strong all weekend, but you were there fighting Fernando Alonso and Aston Martin and looking quicker than him on the exact same strategy at the end of that race.
You summed it up well. I think qualifying, we knew on a single lap we knew we could deliver, and then it was just a question of how we can translate that into race pace. We knew we'd be there or thereabouts fighting for a point. I've been pretty clear on that all weekend. But this was better than that. This was on merit, fighting an Aston and 2 Ferraris, and it felt good at the end of the race. It's the best I can say.
I mean, it looked good from the outside as well. I think the fans were loving it with Alex up there, but also Logan coming through, one place outside the points. I mean, how encouraged have you been by, I guess, the overall strength of the team this weekend?
Yeah, Logan, this is what you have to support rookies in this journey. It is incredibly tough. I've been very clear on that. 5 races at the beginning of the year, that were street tracks he's never been to before. He hadn't done a kilometre in this car before we got to Bahrain. And so what we have now is an environment where he's able to build and learn and grow, and that's what happened in Austria. It's the first time you saw him step change towards it. He's now gone to a track where, again, he was strong last year, and you can see that step again in confidence. And the first into the race, you look back, and there's Logan, just there. And he finished the race just a couple of seconds away from his first point. We were egging him on, but there was not a lot he could do to get through. I mean, the pedal moved him forward, but that didn't help you on track. But the point is that learning, that confidence, that's the bit that he needs, and you'll see that'll be a step change now going forward.
Yeah, it's very encouraging from a driver point of view, but I remember you saying in Canada how hard you targeted that race, that points could be on offer there, new power unit in there, get the upgrade on the car. Did you expect it to be so productive at so many venues afterwards as well, to this level?
I think Silverstone, when you look back at the history and look at this car, the team has generally been strong here. So I expected it to be good. Perhaps not the level we are here, where you're finishing 8th. You know, what I mean by good is we have the opportunity to score a 10th or a 9th if we get absolutely everything right. Today, there are some circumstances that did also fall towards us. We have to be clear about that. But I expected that the performance we on the car, well, people asked me, what is it? I said, it's downforce. It will help you everywhere in that sequence. Now, there are going to be tracks that don't suit us as much. Budapest coming up is one of those. But Spa on the other side of that will. And so what we're going to do is just make sure at the tracks where we know we have the opportunity, maximise that.
Well, you've certainly done that today, and I remember again asking in Canada if you could fight for 7th legitimately in the Constructors' Championship, and you've moved up to 7th today. I mean, how much of a boost is that for this team? Because I'll be honest, I think everyone, if they're to rank the teams going into the season, thought Williams would finish 10th. Sorry, but...
So have a look around. Have a look at people's faces, their shoulders. I always talk about body language because that's one of your key drivers. Doesn't matter what words you use. Look at how they are and how they're standing. Everyone here is proud now. Proud to wear the Williams shirt. I described it to Channel 4 as there seems to be a lot of closet Williams fans, and that's how I describe it now. I'd say the whole pit lane in the world is. And the progress we've made, genuine and real. But there's a lot more to come. And a lot more to come also means that we have to disrupt what we're doing at the moment. But I don't want to be here for the team just fighting in 8th or 9th. I want the team to have the ability to be rewarded with the benefits I've had in my lifetime in the sport and fighting further up than that. And to do that, there's a long, long way ahead of us.
But does this show you've got, I guess, the people, you've got the potential, this team? As you said there's areas that need improving and investing in, and it will take time. But for you to already be fighting with teams like the size of Aston Martin, with the money behind them and the new infrastructure they've got, I mean, that must be so encouraging for the future.
It is, but again, boots on the ground, as I always use the expression, one race. You know, I'll really come to you and say that once we've done that for 5 races in a row and they're looking up behind us. And I think that's a little bit unrealistic from where we are now, but that's what I want for the team. We have good people in place. There's no doubt about it. You don't produce the car you have here. We've made changes already. There's many, many more to come across the next few years, and that's the bit I'm excited by. This is where we are today, where we're going to be in the future.
And just finally, how good is Alex Albon? Because he's just been producing, from the outside, it looks like stunning performances week in, week out.
I mean, if he hears this, average, it's okay. We need to work on a few things. If he doesn't hear this, I've already said it. He's so underrated, and I think finally now people get the opportunity to see how incredible he is.
I won't tell him, don't worry.
Done. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Oh, that was great. If he hears this, I love it. All right, guys, we got to sneak in a break real quick. And when we come back, Chris Medland caught up with Christian Horner, and he's going down to McLaren after that. You listen to Speed City? Back after these messages. All right, so live on the YouTubes and the Facebooks. Let's see what's going on out there. I want to say hi to a couple of new people. The Wood Source commented in. Plenty to unpack and enjoy about this F1 season. Once Red Bull's finished, as P1 is acknowledged and set to the side. Wood Source, I heard somebody say, you just take a Post-it note and stick it over Max, because we know he's going to win, and we've acknowledged he's amazing, And then after that, it's awesome. So let's see who else. Ricardo says, what do you guys think about the young American from New York City? Oh, yeah, this guy. Oh, my gosh. Bob, you're going to have me pronounce his name. It's Ugo Chukwuwu. I forgot how to say his name. He's on the McLaren Junior team. He's been racking up wins. We've talked about him, Ricardo. We've talked about him, and not enough, clearly, because I'll get his name right one of these days. But yeah, Bob, do you remember who he's talking about?
Yeah, I do, absolutely. And the team has taken a real interest in his career, no doubt, driven a bit by Lewis and his efforts to diversify the sport. And the kid's got talent, no question about it, but he'll have to make his way up the ladder, just as they all do. And we'll see how far that talent will take him. But yeah, it's great to see the driver. Well, all the teams that have these academies, if you want to call them that, all the top teams are trying to find those great talents and not only to have them, but to keep from other people getting them, which is what they always used to say down here in the South about Bear Bryant at University of Alabama. He'd sign 100 prospects because he didn't want any of his rivals to get these kids. And even if they didn't play it down for Alabama, they were sitting on the bench and not on the other side of the field. And so, yeah, it's
here we go.
That's the future.
Hi, this is Karun Chandok, and you're listening to Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
All right, welcome back to the show. We are breaking down the 2023 Formula One British Grand Prix for you. Chris Medland is out at Silverstone, and he stopped by and talked with Christian Horner.
Christian, just really speaking to Checo in there, what do you say to your driver after a race like that? Because a good recovery from him, but not to the podium.
Absolutely, I was congratulating him on a very strong recovery. I mean, his pace, particularly at the end of the race there, was very, very strong. Some cracking overtakes. I mean, his move on Carlos Sainz, wow. We just got to get him starting in position, because I think as soon as we do that, then he'll be back at the front.
Yeah, I mean, you guys are obviously at the front with Max, but was this the closest fight you've had this season? Was the McLaren truly that quick, or were you just managing pace?
I think the McLaren was genuinely that quick. I think this circuit, that car worked very well, and they gave us a race today. I mean, we had to pass them in the first stint. Max built about a 8-9 second lead. And then the question safety car, and having seen George do such a good job on the softs, we decided to do that.
Yeah, and then I guess that decision bore out even better based on how long that safety car was. Was there never any concern, I guess, for that restart, that because McLaren were on the hards then that you had that one covered?
Well, I think that was primarily the reason for the soft, was to break the toe at the restart, and I think Max used that to really good effect, and then was able to manage the race from there really. So he pulled out 3 seconds very quickly, and then just kept building the gap from there.
When you've been in the form you are in, when you see Max get a poor start, as I call it, but he only dropped one position in the end, but you're not leading, I mean, how do you react to that? Do you just think, he'll get him soon, or is there some nerves?
To stay calm, and so I think we've seen so many times, the second place on the grid here. We saw it 21 every sprint race, main race, and so many times over the years that arguably the second place here, for whatever reason, is tends to get the better start. So we need to look at our start and understand where we can improve. But McLaren were quick today.
Well, how strange is that though? Like McLaren this time, it's been Ferrari, it's been Mercedes, it's been Aston. There's always someone different chasing you, but no one getting there.
I know, it's quite funny how the whole thing moves around. So, the good thing is that we're still performing at a very high level, and week in, week out, whatever the challenges are, we're rising to them, and that's 11 straight victories that matches, ironically, McLaren. It's something incredibly, an incredible achievement for the whole team.
And some people might overlook your achievements, but this is your home race. The factory's just down the road. This is the first time you've won the British Grand Prix. You won 60th anniversary race, I think it was, and that was behind closed doors, so in front of a full house here. How special is this for the team to win here?
This is massive. I mean, we haven't won here since 2012, with Mark Webber, and we were unlucky last year with the debris that Max picked up. We were unlucky in 21 So in some ways it feels like it was overdue, and it's such a great track. It's, to win in front of a British crowd as well, even without a British driver, is very special.
Well done today.
Thank you very much.
You know what? I think I actually believe Christian Horner when he says that it was the McLaren actually fast today, because I've said it all season long. I felt like they've just been kind of sandbagging and giving us all they needed to win. But at the beginning of that race, Lando was sticking with him, wasn't he?
Oh yeah, and Christian Horner is not going to sugarcoat it. He got where he is because they recognize the reality, and I'm sure there's a lot of talk in the Red Bull garage and back at Red Bull base about, hey, where did McLaren come from? What are they doing? And you heard him also say that he was watching, as all the teams do, watching what everybody else was doing on whatever kind of tire they were on. And when they saw George Russell in the Mercedes go 28 laps on a set of the softs, they said, we can do that too. So they went for the quickest tire, knowing that Max and the car would handle it. And obviously it worked very well. I mean, Max is going to clinch the title sooner rather than later. And then we'll all be talking about what kind of records is he going to break this year, because he's got a great team behind him, a great car under him, and he's a great driver.
Hey, let me give out the phone number again. We had some great callers today. It's 512-643-LIVE, 512-643-5483. We would love to hear your insights on the British Grand Prix. And we are going to go to the top of the hour. Chris Medland is out there getting us some interviews, but we'll try to take calls in between all of that. But I want to go to you, Dave O'Neill, former HAAS F1 team manager. That HAAS garage has got to be a sad place right now, I would imagine.
Yeah, I don't. I think they'll be packing up. Well, they won't be because they're testing, so they're going to even be sadder because they'll have to stay there for a little bit longer. But yeah, I mean, they're struggling on the race, aren't they? They can't make the tires work. They either don't have the downforce, or can't generate the grip with the downforce they have, and can't maximize any tire in any way, shape or form by the looks of it. So, they'll go back, they'll have the debrief straight after the race. One of them was obviously a technical issue, so there's not much they can do there, but they were set for 17th and 18th, I think, during that race. Hungary, different story. It's a little bit shorter, not so fast sweeping corners, lots of braking, tight, twisty stuff as well. So, we'll move on. It's all about recovery, but also, finding out exactly what the issue is not a quick, sometimes not a quick fix. When you have to, design new bodywork, have bodywork made, and then put it on. And maybe that's what they have done, and it didn't work. So they have to go back to the drawing board there as well.
Dave, when we sat here in Austin last year and they announced the MoneyGram title sponsorship, and when Gunther said that this felt like a great fit, and he said it in his book, and you could feel it. It was palpable at that press conference. I was on that front row sitting, 10 feet from the CEO of MoneyGram, and you could really sincerely feel that they felt like this was a good thing for them, that Gunther and the team felt like it was a good thing for the team. They were bringing a legitimate American, big-time, publicly traded sponsor. I mean, this was the dream, right? This is exactly what we had talked about after they ejected the Russians and said, we're going to go for, we were saying they need an American sponsor, and they did it. They got it. They now have the money. Gunther said it to our face when we were sitting there. He's going, now we can actually hit the cost cap. Before we weren't even able to, didn't even matter to us. But now they need to convert all of that. I mean, now's the time for that HAAS F1 team to mature and start, getting more consistent and moving up. And, do you think that we just need to give them more time? I know it's still pretty early, but what do you think?
Yeah, I don't think it's a work of a moment. Once you get the money, like you say, you're building up to the cost cap. There's there's also other dynamics, I think, which aren't 100% correct. You know, with the wind tunnel, the race teams based in the UK, you have stuff going on at you know, Dallara, where the car's designed, etc. That maybe the communication side of it is still a little bit of a struggle. But it also takes time to build these things up. You know, Red Bull didn't turn up and win straight away.
Yeah, like our caller said.
Sorry?
It's just like our caller said, yeah.
Yes, yeah. I think they have you know, they have a struggle on their hands, and it's not as if everyone's waiting for them to catch up. You know, it's not like, well, we'll wait till you catch up and then we'll all go again. You know, it's not like that. Everyone's beavering away, keeping all their trade secrets, keeping all their staff so the trade secrets aren't slipped away. And you know, at the end of the day, you don't necessarily have the funds and the time to be able to pull someone from a top team to bring them down. And of course, it's not just one person that's going to make the difference. You know, I know we all give Adrian Newey the kudos, but he's been doing it for a long time. He has a lot of people around who think his way and they do exactly how he wants, and it, you know, there's no discussion. So, you know, there's different ways of, I guess, leading, but the guy who has impressed me hugely, changing from HAAS to Williams, is James. You know, the way his leadership is fantastic. Super intelligent, has a strategy, also has had the experience of winning multiple races and multiple world championships. And I think he's a great addition to the team. He's probably pulled, you know, some good people along with him. And also, you know, maybe they have had the money to work behind the scenes. It's not as if they've had sponsors on the car that we can see, but maybe they have had, you know, money come in that hasn't been announced. But yeah, interesting, really, I guess.
Yeah, Bob Varsha, we had one of our regulars tweet at us yesterday, Drew. He's a big HAAS F1 fan. And I think he was angry, and he was like, "Time for Gunther to go." And I'm like, "Okay, that's, you know, that's going to happen in Formula One. It always happens." But you know, you've got to have everybody. Gunther can't be good at everything, right? And he's got to have the money now to hire the right people. We know that, like you talk about, Dave talking about Adrian Newey. He's amazing. Zach Brown. He's fantastic at what he does at promotions, but he's not a technical guy. What do you think? Do you think Gunther can now have some budget to go hire some of the right people?
Well, yeah, listening to Dave is exactly what I was thinking. Money, although it's critically important in Formula One, it's not everything. You know, you need to have, as Dave pointed out, you know, a guy of the quality of a James Vowles, you know, running the show and looking at what they've got lined up and where are our weak points and how do we strengthen those weak points. Money allows you to hire people, as you pointed out, and maybe that's what's needed at HAAS. Maybe they need another person here or there with the expertise and the breadth of experience to do good things. And you know, keep in mind, HAAS is a complex organization. We've got an office at Ferrari, they've got an office at Base, they've got an office at Canapolis. You know, they work closely with Dallara on the chassis. It's that's a lot of threads to keep track of, and they're getting there. I mean, I don't think there's any doubt that HAAS has made a step up this year. They're still having issues with tire degradation, and obviously reliability is an issue for them. So, you know, you've got to focus on the areas that need help, but you also have to have the right solution for what areas need help. As to Gunther, you know, there was a time, I will admit, I thought, yes, Gunther might be the problem. I don't think that anymore. Having listened to him and watched his work, I don't think that's the issue. I think Gunther knows better than anybody his team still has needs, and I'm sure he will stop at nothing to get those needs filled. So
I agree.
You just got to watch the whole situation. and see what comes from it. But I think there are better days ahead for MoneyGram Haas.
And I agree with you about Gunther even more after listening to his book. I think that he's clearly really smart, and he gets to the point so quickly. And I'm just watching Dave O'Neill's eyes because I know you worked with the Gunther so closely, and I know you think so highly of him too. A great comment from Andy P on YouTube. He's watching on YouTube right now, and he says, path forward for Haas probably starts with next season. It takes time to build infrastructure. See Williams, for example, 2+ years into the Doralton Capital ownership, and you're just now seeing good things. Absolutely. Because Haas has not had big money. So, all right, guys, let's get our last break in, and when we come back, we'll see who Chris gets for us, and we'll finish up our British Grand Prix coverage after this. Okay, we're still live on YouTube, and let's see who's got some comments here. Wow, the Wood Source. Whoa, this is pretty nice. He says, best post-race in F1. We are fortunate to have the SCB team. Thanks again for the efforts, creativity, and talents. Wow. Huh. Thanks, Wood Source. That's really nice of you to say. I try to surround myself with the best because I am the rookie. Boys know what the heck they're doing and talking about. I wish Jonathan Green were here for the British Grand Prix, but that's all right. And Chris has been texting me. Let's see what he says. He says, in my ear, the producer says Piastri. He said, Chris is saying getting Oscar, and he said, we'll try for Fred Vasseur after that. So we're going to have Piastri when we come back from the break. Very excited for that. He's probably not going to get Lando. I mean, Chris can get just about anybody, but Lando's going to have the world trying to get him today after home race and P2. Super happy for that. Let's see what else. Kevin Kelly, 2 engine failures this weekend. K-Mag's final engine unit. So now he's going to start paying for that. What's the penalty for that? You know, Dave?
Not 100% sure. I think there's probably a load of grid drops for it.
Yeah.
It depends what part of the engine has gone. If it's it's the turbo, if it's the the oil system or the power unit itself. So I need to check on that.
Hey, Andy.
Yeah, they're go ahead.
I was just going to say, Andy P's got a podcast. Throw it in the chat, Andy. I know you wouldn't do that normally, but you do such a good job, and throw it in the chat. Tell everybody where your podcast is. Tell them to go listen to our podcast. Nobody listens to our podcast, relatively speaking, considering how much exposure we try to give it. So you guys, all right, here we go.
Hello to everyone. This is Gunther Steiner. This is Speed City. Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
Thank you, Mr. Steiner. And I highly, highly recommend listening to Gunther's book. It was just fantastic. I was riveted. I've blasted all the way through it. And so highly recommend it. When I went to break, I said that we were going to check with Chris, and Chris has caught up with one of the McLaren drivers. So excited for this. Oscar Piastri. Let's hear it.
Oscar, I think we're going to get stopped a lot on this walk and talk, but you tell you what, when I normally do these interviews, I can tell how a driver's feeling. I can get a read on their emotion on something. I don't know which way this is going to go, so I'm going to ask you, how do you sum up that result?
Bittersweet is how I would sum that up. It's such a nice feeling to be fighting in the top 3, to be disappointed with 4th place. I could only dreamed of that even 7 days ago. So to be so close hurts. If it wasn't for a unfortunate timing of a safety car, it could have been a rookie podium. So it stings a little bit, but to be in that position in the first place, it's such a nice feeling. Compared to where we have been at points this season, the turnaround we've had is nothing short of remarkable. So. Now hopefully we can keep this going. We know that these 2 circuits have been nice for us, but to be genuinely the second quickest car today, I think you're not human if that doesn't excite you.
It's remarkable as well in the sense that the team's made the step so quickly, but Also, you didn't put a wheel wrong all weekend, which is why I appreciate the bittersweet side, but you must be so proud of the way you drove. Now you had, it's the first time with the updated car for you.
Yeah, very, very happy. You know, I feel like I did a good job all weekend. You know, I feel like I put a clean lap together in qualifying. I feel like the race I couldn't have done too much more, especially in that first stint when it mattered. You know, there really wasn't anything more I could have done, so very happy with what I did. You know, I'm excited for the next couple of upgrades that we've got coming. Lando had a new front wing this weekend that I'll have next weekend, so I know there's a little bit more in there as well. But yeah, to be fighting so far up at the front for the team is a great result, but also for myself, it's a very nice feeling to be back at the front and knowing that I can still fight at the front.
I was going to say, how were the emotions? It was your first time being up there in Formula One so early in your career, and kind of unexpected with how quickly the team's turned the season around. Like, were you suddenly nervous on the grid? Was there more to it, or was it kind of back to the same old from your F2 days?
In some ways, I was almost more comfortable. You know, it's always easier when you can start at the front. You're out of all the carnage in the mid-pack, which is where we've been the whole year. So, you know, some of those things are a little bit easier, but yeah, it was so nice to be back at the front, you know, be able to settle into a nice rhythm. And, you know, I think the first few laps were probably the most nerve-wracking. You know, not our pace like compared to Ferrari and Mercedes and stuff, but when we started pulling away from them, that was quite a nice feeling, I have to say. So, yeah, a shame for the timing of the safety car, but all in all, super happy with the weekend we've had.
Just finally then, do you think you're going to get more opportunities to step onto a podium this year, given the big step forward the team's produced recently?
I sure hope so. We'll see. I think, you know, Austria and Silverstone are two very good circuits for us, especially here with all its high-speed content, but we've made a massive step forward on Sundays, clearly. You know, we've managed to be quick over one lap at times with the old spec car, but always gone backwards in the race. And today, you know, we were genuinely the second quickest car in the race today, so that's one hell of a turnaround. So hopefully there's plenty more opportunities to come.
Oh, well done today. I'm glad you're happy because the Ashes are still alive.
I know. Thank you.
Genuinely the second fastest car. We said it a minute ago, and I agree with that. And speaking of genuine, we have Chris Medland joining us live from Silverstone, stealing someone's Wi-Fi.
Do it live!
Where are you, Chris?
As always, I genuinely am here, the genuine me. I'm actually stood outside Ferrari, but somehow I'm connected to Pirelli's Wi-Fi. I don't know where that's coming from, but it's working, so I'm not going to move. I'm actually just trying to see if I can doorstep Fred Varsha at some point, but right now I believe he's in engineering, so I'm not sure he'll come back out before we're off air, but I do want to get his opinion on their day. I've spoken to a few Ferrari team members, and they said they thought it'd be tough today, but just not that tough. They made errors with their executionists. The drivers didn't get everything right either. So I think just a tough day around for Ferrari. But yeah, what a day for McLaren and for Oscar. And I was trying to think of what my first question to him should be. And I didn't want to put words in his mouth and say, you must be gutted or you must be delighted, because I couldn't tell. So I thought, you know what? I'll just tell him I don't know.
Yeah, that's great. And he opened up a little bit, didn't he? He's kind of quiet, but he was, you know, tooting his own horn, saying, you know, maybe a rookie podium, and talking about their team. It was refreshing. I want to see him open up a little bit, and I guess a little fast car and confidence will do that.
Absolutely. I mean, I dealt with Oscar a fair bit when he was racing in Formula 2, when I was hosting the press conferences there and did some interviews with him. And he's got a really good sense of humor. He's a really nice kid, but he just, I think, has kept his head down a little bit in F1, and just his delivery sometimes doesn't sound all that, I guess, energetic or emotional. But yeah, I think after a day like today, when people just get to hear more from him as well, they'll start to see that side of him.
Yeah, and it must have been a thrill for him dicing with Max Verstappen after that start. I mean, it must have crossed his mind that I'm here interlocking wheels with the dominant guy in the championship right now. That's got to be quite a thrill.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I thought for a minute he was going to just send one and be like, well, Max is on the back foot and we've got a chance to pull off something special here. But at the same time, he's very, very sensible at his decision making. He knows when to risk it. He knows when not to. And obviously such a big result on the cards for McLaren. Didn't let Max have it easy, did he? He didn't move over for him, but he also didn't put himself in any sillies, and it shows. He's still got what's great racecraft, because obviously as a rookie as well, sometimes that's why I asked him about it. You know, do you feel nervous? But quite the opposite. He's like, nah, this is where I'm used to being and comfortable being.
Yeah, 22 years old. I'm always stunned at how mature that these guys can be, right? I mean, and you have to be a Formula One driver, but Oscar Piastri in particular, he really comes off that way.
Yeah, a lot of them are. I mean, Logan was as well. When
Yeah.
we heard from him earlier, like a lot of these guys are very self-critical as well. I like that a lot of the newer drivers, they rarely look for excuses. They tend to be harshest on themselves first, but in a quite a good way. And I don't know if that's just a generational thing or if it's just a group of them that have come through and been like that similar. But yeah, it's been good to see actually, and I think that's going to stand them in good stead. And a word for actually McLaren. I was thinking in the first part of that race when Oscar was shadowing Lando throughout that whole first stint, and when they're running so competitively at the front, and I'm like, I don't, no disrespect to Daniel Ricciardo, but boy, did the team make the right choice when they, people did question it a bit last summer, and it can't have been an easy choice, and we'd have loved to see it work with Daniel, but it wasn't working, and they brought in a rookie that they were convinced would do the job, and they've been proven correct.
Yeah, yeah, you're absolutely right. Hey, when you were saying about that, how they're self-critical, kind of Charles Leclerc kind of leads that way, and I think he almost takes it too far, but I think he's of that, of these new young generation, he's kind of been the one that maybe he's setting the standard because he is very self-critical about himself. About after sometimes he'll focus on one bad move.
Yeah, I'd certainly agree. I think he can be too harsh on himself sometimes. Want him to cut himself some slack, but yeah, it does show that these guys they're looking at how they can improve. They're very aware of that sort of thing. That yes, it's a team sport, and if you've got a great car, you've got a chance of winning races. But right now, especially how tight it is with everyone except Max, and that Red Bull, you've got to be close to perfect to get your results, and that's the level that they're all demanding of each other as well. So yeah, it's quite refreshing to see, I think.
Hey, we're down to 2 minutes left in the show, and we have not spoken Fernando Alonso's name. He didn't do too bad, finishing 7th. The thing that stood out to me was when they were talking about him toying with Gasly. But what you guys think?
Well, I recall Martin Brundle saying on the Sky Show, "This is the Fernando Alonso who not too long ago said, I'm going to be on the podium every race the rest of the year." Now, maybe he was a little tongue-in-cheek on that, but it does seem as though the Aston Martins have sort of lost their edge, whether that's because of all the falderall around opening their spacious new facility. I don't know, or whether there's something going on. But Alonso, another very canny driver. We saw him put up no fight at all when faster cars were going by, but he'll fight when the time comes. I'm just wondering if he doesn't have the car under him improving at the rate it did earlier in the season. It's just, we'll have to wait to hear it from the horse's mouth, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Aston need to be competitive today. Tom McCulloch doing his pre-race briefing this morning was kind of excited to see how this race would pan out and thought they'd be in a good fight with Mercedes, Ferrari and McLaren. And they just didn't quite have that pace, did they? I mean, Alex, I said it in a lot of the questions to the Williams guys, but Alex Albon was on the same strategy and in the final part of that race was putting the pressure on. I thought he was going to get Alonso.
All right, guys, we are done. We are out of time. Chris Medland, fantastic job. Thanks for those great interviews. And thanks, Bob Varsha, Dave O'Neill. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. And don't forget, you can go to our website, speedcitybroadcast.com, to find out about all our shows. But we'll be back live next Sunday night for our Sunday night with Speed City, and then back in the Formula One the next weekend. Thanks, everybody. Talk to you soon.
Cheers.
Yeah.